Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Streggy, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did.
Yay! Alrighty. Thank you for coming back with us, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your hosts. And welcome back to Inside Movies Galore, where we are continuing a birthday kind of month. And this week, Tammy has brought something to the table, and it's basically the sequel to the one she did 2 Mondays ago. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the film that you brought to the table for us, Tammy?
Queen of the Damned. So it's another one of Anne Rice's novels, continuing the vampire.
Okay. And it is, I believe, from 1998?
2002.
2002. Okay. So 2002, there was quite a few movies that had come out at the time. I do believe that The Ring was one of them. Or was it The Ring?
That was 2002, I believe.
Yep. Along with many others. So let's see what IMDb says about the movie and go forward from there. Just bringing up the page here. Okay. So this is what IMDb says about it. In this loose sequel to Interview with the Vampire, the vampire Lestat becomes a rock star whose music wakes up the equally beautiful and monstrous queen of all vampires. And it's directed by Michael Rymer, with writers Anne Rice, Scott Abbott, and Michael Petroni behind the script stuff. And it stars Aaliyah in her last role, Stuart Townsend, and Marguerite Moreau, among many others. So, Tammy, did you want to bring us into first impressions?
Okay, so David, why don't you give your first impression?
Okay, I do believe that I actually did see this in the theaters when it came out. I believe it was one of the ones that my paid for by the state mentor took me to. And I enjoyed it at the time, even though I know it's a very loose adaptation of the novel. I know it didn't entirely go the way it did in the film, but this is art. So that being said, I think the soundtrack to this is very, very interesting because Korn was originally supposed to be behind it, but because of studio issues dealing with contract, he could not. So there was a various series of bands that were friends of his at the time, and you got the singer from Disturbed. You got Marilyn Manson on the soundtrack there. You got somebody from, I believe, Linkin Park.
Yeah, Chester Bennington.
And a few others from some various bands which got together too. Even though Korn, the writer from Korn, of the lyrics of Korn, was involved, lyrics wise.
Jonathan Davis.
Yep, Jonathan Davis. And it was definitely an interesting come around as far as soundtracks go. sorry for talking about it ahead of time, but it was kind of like a big thing at the time. And another big thing was the fact that on the cusp of this movie coming out, Aaliyah happened to have been in a plane crash and her life was taken from her. So this was her last role. But I enjoy Stuart Townsend more as Vampire Lestat. I wish that he would have been on the spectrum of being chosen in the original. And I actually really like this one. I like the story. I like the people involved. I like the way the vampires are done. And this was way before Twilight. For God's sake, no sparkly vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think what they did for it worked for what it was attempting to do. So that's where I sit. Other people can have their own opinions, but if of modern day vampire movies, this is my favorite.
Okay. How about you, Jake?
This is actually a first time watch for me. I obviously the movie's been on my radar for many years. I did not know about the music controversy, and I actually was reading up on it just before. From what I was reading and what it says on IMDb, it looks like Jonathan Davis actually did perform in the movie, but for some reason he couldn't perform on the official soundtrack release. And I don't know why that is. But music rights are messed up. They're a weird thing.
There was something in the
It
contract.
said something about the contract with Sony.
Yeah.
So he couldn't be on the soundtrack.
That makes more sense. That makes sense. Okay. But yeah, it's a stupid thing. But anyway, I did hear a lot, of course, about there was a big to do about how this was going to be a star-making role for Aaliyah. She was still riding high, like she was big in the music scene at that time. Her presence on the soundtrack for Anastasia, I remember that song that she did was huge with my graduating class. And I remember that she died before she could actually, I guess she had filmed the role, but she had not had a chance to do any of the post-production work. So, and I guess one mystery talking about the music is it's weird that someone who's known as a singer had no involvement whatsoever in the music. And I'm wondering if that was the plan. Or I don't know. And I don't know if anyone has ever come out and said whether that was the plan. But obviously it was unable to happen. And she was not old. She was, 22 when she went in that plane crash? 22, yeah. Actually,
like that.
Brandon, I think she was your age.
I seem to remember the role before this. I believe might have been Romeo Must Die, where
that was her other film role. Yeah,
worked with Jet Li, and she was phenomenal in that. So.
I still need to see. I've never seen that one either. But then of course some of the other people here I'm less familiar with. I know Lena Olin definitely, and I've seen Marguerite Moreau in a couple of things. I've seen a couple of these people in other things, but I just. Again, as I said when we did Interview with the Vampire, it was never really a movie that I had such a great love for that I was automatically there for the sequel. There was a lot of controversy about this, about how good a sequel it actually was. And from what I understand, it's not just that it was a loose adaptation. It was that they basically tried to cram 2 books into one movie. and apparently Anne Rice considered it a butchery of the stories. She really lobbied hard for them to focus on the second book, The Vampire Lestat, instead of cramming them together. And also, apparently, they did this stupid ass thing where they had 1 year left on the rights, and so they rushed a movie into production to get one made, which doesn't speak well for this film from an artistic standpoint. But having said that, I thought it was entertaining. I watched it. Lestat is much less annoying to me in this movie. And I don't know if that's all on Stuart Townsend or what. And again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know how the character really should come across. But he was much more, I don't want to say sympathetic, but I guess sympathetic. He was easier to root for than Tom Cruise's version. Let's put it that way. He's still not the main one I was rooting for. I mean, but
yes, Lestat was always played off in the novels as being very cocky and self-assured of himself,
right.
Especially like while he was still learning his vampirism.
Right.
When he first was bitten by Marius in the books, I know that there was a hell of a lot more that went with his backstory, but they actually stayed true as much as they could to the backstory of him. And it was true, at least in the book, that Marius kind of just left him hanging for like 200 years. So that's at least something.
That said, I do kind of like Marius. He was kind of fun. But so Dave, you said you have read them. Dave, you said you have read the books?
I have read at least the first 3.
Okay, so you could comment on this. If they did indeed cram 2 books into one movie that's not even 2 hours long, is this an example? Is this an example of the kind of thing that I talk about sometimes, of like a movie where you're watching the book and fast forward, or
kind of watching the book and fast forward, because there were elements of Akashka.
Okay.
Technically, it was more about, or they were trying to do it more about the Queen, and they did go into her backstory just a little bit with Marius and whatnot, and
right.
And to be very honest, I think they made their point and statement when she took Lestat into her own, and he saw the millions of corpses that were already there and whatnot. Is this the kind of kingdom that I'm looking forward to? No, definitely not. So, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, right.
I think that,
that?
They tried to put too much, kind of in a way, tried to put too much into the movie, because I've read the books too. So
I will say, as someone who hasn't read the books, it doesn't feel as rushed as it could have. But I can imagine fans of the books, knowing that, would probably have been upset.
Well, I've always said that there should have been a movie called Lestat.
Right.
And then there should have been this movie.
Okay.
I've said that from the very beginning, but I've read the books, so.
Right. So so like I said, my initial perception was that it's a decent movie. I actually, this is not my favorite kind of music that's featured in this movie, not by any means. But for the vibe they're going for, I was never a fan of Korn, and I didn't realize that it was the Korn lead singer that was behind it. But as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, of course. But I will say it fits the vibe of the movie. It does fit. I could absolutely see someone like Lestat embracing that scene and just fully using it.
Well, yeah, that was definitely the age of new metal and alternative metal.
Right.
And that was the music that I was brought up on. Or, well, not brought up on. That was the music that was around while I was in high school. And that's the scene that I got interested in a lot at one point in time. So the music spoke to me.
Very good. Very good. But yeah. So yeah, overall, like I said, I'm glad I finally got to see it. I'm glad I finally got that put that to rest. I could see myself probably revisiting it again in the future. I don't have it in the collection. I could see this being something I'd like to get one of these days. Probably have to see if I can find a 2-movie set with this one and the other one, try and save some space. But yeah, I'm glad I finally got to see it.
Okay.
Mine is actually on the Lost Boys trilogy and this movie are all on one thing.
The which one?
The Lost Boys trilogy.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a random lumping.
Yeah, they lumped the 3 with Queen of the Damned in a DVD set.
Huh. Interesting.
So, okay, how about you, Brandon?
Well, I'd heard about this movie a long time ago. I mean, I kept passing it by in Walmart and saying, maybe one day, and then moving on. So I'm glad I got to see it. I was never into the scene for a lot of music. I was usually into I was more specific into certain ones. Around that time, it was more like Alice Cooper or
Queen.
Gosh, well, Queen. They Might Be Giants. A lot of punk rock. So I'm not as familiar with Aaliyah's catalog as a lot of people at the time, but from what I'd heard, she was very big. And then she tragically lost her life, I think, during the filming of this, where even I think it was her brother that had to come in and actually do some dubbing or something of her brother. Her brother, yeah. As Kim was saying that her brother had, and that's interesting to know. The music, if there was anything that reflected the times, I think this movie came out at the exact right time it needed to, because goth vampire hot topic scene was at its height during this time, and this movie musically, thematically, everything spoke to it. It just, I could see this movie going on repeat as they talk about the evil of conformists. That being said, I'm glad I saw it once. I don't know if I guess unless I'm given a reason to, I'm probably not going to buy it for my collection. I may buy Interview for the Vampire one day for my collection, but this one, probably not. I can see where the inspiration for Twilight was taken here, whereas because I knew that there was a lot of inspiration from Anne Rice that led to Twilight, and this one, I swear, whoever made the Twilight movies definitely took note of this movie, because there's a lot of similarities there.
Right.
Lestat is definitely Edward, and there's a lot to that. I mean, they even had their own Bella in this. It But
Yeah, actually, I thought Jesse's character that I was thinking like this is proto Bella definitely.
now, that being said, I've never read the books for these series. I have read the Twilight quadrilogy. Is it quadrilogy or trilogy? I have read the Twilight novels, which are actually not bad. The movies, however,
Are
but yeah,
terrible.
this
Yeah.
this definitely had heavy Twilight vibes for me because I've seen that first, even though this came before Twilight. So I could see where this inspired a lot of that. I also thought that I could follow the plot, but I feel like it definitely could have been extended. If they had extended into 2 movies, spent more time on the plot, and did a little bit more in that, I think that it probably would have been better at the end of it all. But I think it did what it needed to do. So I was okay with it overall.
Okay. And what about you, Tammy?
I'm not sure when I saw it for the first time. I I want to say I thought it I saw it in the theater, but I'm not sure just because I had the books and I had read the books, and I've always liked my vampire stuff. So, but I'm not quite sure because I know I saw it not long after it came out, so that's why I'm thinking I did see it in the theater. Um, I I I really liked it and everything, got into it. But because I read the books, I definitely, I still to this day think there should have been a Lestat movie and a Queen of the Damned movie, not a combination so much, you know. But
Is Lestat still a major character in Queen of the Damned, the book, or is that
yes,
okay?
but there is an actual novel Lestat. It would have been,
Right.
I think, having a movie just centered on
Yeah,
him.
because I seem
You
to
know,
remember the novel Lestat going heavily into Lestat during the centuries. Like the entire book was more or less a flashback of his life up until the present. And then the Queen of the Damned did, in fact, have a Lestat actually be the one who actually helped with Akashka's escape from her stone structure, So,
but yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy it. Yes, I did like it, of course, and everything. But I don't know. I guess after reading all the books, it just felt like it was missing stuff to me. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it or anything. But obviously, so um, and unfortunately, the actress, I wish she would not tragically passed away because you know um I think that there could have been more built on this movie concerning her
Mm-hmm.
if she wouldn't have tragically passed away like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that she did very well in the movie. So, but yeah, that being said, I mean, I do have to give it, kudos that, you did. If you're one that has read the series, you got to at least, know who at least got a glimpse of who Marius was. You got to, you got to have a little bit of more of a background on Lestat from that you didn't
Well,
get in the interview, you know.
and I do want to mention that the Telemaskin, the society that supposedly like keeps track of all things weird, kind of like
Right.
your UFO whatever people or whatnot. They
Yes.
are actually both in the Vampire Chronicles as well as the Mayfair Witches series. So I just wanted to point that out there.
So I wanted to point out real quick, as far as things I thought were missing, or more of a question then to the people who have read the books. One of the things that I felt, and I don't know if Brandon will agree with me on this, I felt was a sort of a plot or dangling thread that was intriguing and interesting, and I don't think it was addressed in the movie. And that was, it's clear that David and Marius have a history, but I have no freaking clue what that history is.
David actually does have a history with Marius. He is the lead project manager in the Telemaskin center of things. In fact, when Jessica was Jess was doing her unbeknownst to him seminar to the Telemaskins, that's why they said, does David know about this? You know, so in the novel, it has a little bit more to do because he is heavily obsessed with Marius and every time he shows up.
Right.
And I think they go into more detail in the novel, but his presence is definitely more miniature.
Yeah, I think in the movie, Marius made a comment or something like, you should see my new painting or some such thing. I can't remember, something to that effect. But
well, down the road, there is an actual book devoted to Marius.
Okay.
Yep, there is.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Mayfair Witches. One thing that I read that I thought was fascinating, this says that Stuart Townsend shares his name with a character from it was The Witching Hour. Sorry, I got it. It's a witch title, dang it. But there's a character in The Witching Hour called Stuart Townsend. Upon meeting Townsend, Rice handed him a copy of the book and instructed him to turn to a certain page, whereupon was written The Life of Stuart Townsend. He was flattered she had written him into her book until she told him she'd written it 11 years earlier. I thought that was kind of funny. But there have been times where that sort of thing could have happened or did happen, and I still say Marvel missed the boat by not casting Stephen Lang in a role because they have a character named Stephen Lang, but yeah. But he would have been a good Cable. But anywho.
Okay. Well, I guess we should move on.
Okay.
So at the beginning of the movie, it's almost, it's in a way, it's almost like he's giving an interview again, and only he's giving the interview because he's the one, he's narrating at the beginning of the movie, about
it's
how
almost a bit Bram Stokerish. Because you're hearing from him first, and then you hear from Jess. But I do like the beginning credits here, where they while the music is playing, they're kind of doing a black and white film, not necessarily a music video, but kind of like a black and white film. So I feel like that is a nod to like Nosferatu a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
But yes, we the opening, like David said, has got all that, and then he's talking about that um he he's hearing what's going on with the world and realizes the world has changed, and now he's curious and he wants to check it out. 'Cause, he basically was Lestat was basically bored, from what it sounds like, with the you know living forever, and that's why he went to take this sleep, as he put it.
Well,
Mhm.
it seems like vampires can instantly go to sleep whenever the fuck they want, so that's always a cool thing.
Okay, yeah, that did give me a question about timeline here. Because it kind of implies that he woke up in the present day, right? Like he's only been out for a little bit of time when he goes public, right?
Well, I know that he's been that Marius left him for 200 years.
Yeah, no, that's not. I'm asking about like the actual timeline of the main part of the film
Oh,
is pretty much a short period of time, but present day, right?
yeah,
And he did say he was asleep for 100 years, right?
correct.
So it seems to contradict the ending of Interview. Because if I remember correctly, Interview ended in the present day when that film came out, which would have been early 90s. And Lestat is awake and active at the end of the film. So that was kind of weird. And I wasn't sure if that was just a mistake of the script or if they were trying to rewrite something or if I just missed something.
I feel like they were trying to revamp our vampire and
Okay.
the mythology that we knew in Interview with the Vampire, because this, even though this is definitely present day, it was new director, new, and I do feel like they definitely rushed this project. Looking back on it from my now somewhat critical eye,
Mhm.
yes, I have a lot of love for this movie, but I definitely do see what you guys are saying. So, there they could have definitely gone a different route if they were going to reinvent the mythology.
I mean, there's always the thought that this is the present day of the end of Interview with the Vampire. They just updated what present day the definition of what present day means,
Yeah.
which happens a lot in films or TV series where it looks like it's a continuation, even though it's different actors and so on, and it's taking place in the modern times, even though the previous one had been 20 years old. It's I think they just like we're moving it forward, as if all those events kind of happened with our actors and our characters, and our time.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't really. To tell you the truth, I didn't really have a deep desire to go any deeper with the lore here. I just kind of took it all on the surface and floated it. So
That's probably the way to do it.
I mean, this is the kind of movie, in my opinion, that you sit around with your goth or vampire buddies. You put it on in the background. You have your clamato juice or your like
Blood drinking appetites,
whatever you tend to drink.
aphrodisiacs.
And you get your your cigarettes and you kind of sit there and you just enjoy the vibe of the film and with your buddies, and that's the kind of that's what I feel like this film was.
Oh, this
Makes
is
sense.
definitely a roadie movie.
Because I could see that, I mean, I didn't know a lot. I knew people who were into that scene, but I never was in it myself. But I could see it really hitting the scene pretty well.
Okay. So, yes, he awakens. He's intrigued by where things are at in this time. And evidently this band that is playing is,
A garage band.
yes, but they're staying at one of his actual places, from what I remember.
Okay.
So,
Well, you know.
One in Rome.
yes, I do like that. Oh, I do like how he just shows up while they're practicing it. It's like all of a sudden he's there. And he's singing some note or whatever that like totally gets everybody's
Oh,
attention, you know?
he missed a glorious opportunity to let them know that he is Krauser's son and they summoned directly from hell.
I do think that when he first shows up, it is just like he introduces himself, but he's like, you
Who
hear
are you?
his thoughts
I
about
am the
it isn't
vampire
that it just
Lestat.
that it just
Vampire, huh?
right. He said it just rolled off his tongue. He doesn't know why he said the whole thing like that because we're not supposed to announce ourselves, you know? You're supposed to stay in the shadows. You're not, you don't like walk up to people and say, I'm a vampire, you know? But,
Well,
yep.
a-
And they,
and you know what's interesting though, the way that they do this. Again, Twilight pulled from this because that was the main issue that was in Twilight, was the fact that they were kind of outing themselves to the human world, and this was what caused the kind of vampire war that they had at the end of that series. So again, I can see where she took from that too.
I feel like
And
that's a common thing actually at this point. Like that was also one of the central points in Karin. And there have been some others too. I actually borrowed the concept myself.
The only thing that I remember from the Twilight movie itself, or anything from the series, is the fucking baseball game, and that was kick-ass.
like I tell you, the movies are definitely not the best introduction to it. The books are decent, if not good. And Meyer's previous work, The Host, is even better. Book, not movie.
but yes, the Lestat definitely does not want to stay hidden anymore.
In fact, he dares the other vampires to shut him up, basically. Come out wherever you are.
So once, yes, he meets the band, he incorporates himself into the band, and
Montage for montage's sake.
then we meet Jess, and we get a little bit of a back. Now we get the background of Lestat because she's reading his journal.
Well, also you get the background, a little bit of Jess herself.
A very little bit. She is
very brief.
She's kind of a cipher for much of the film, and that was another thing that I thought they could have handled a little more smoothly. And maybe it is in the novels, but in the movie, there's a lot of unanswered questions until late in the film that I don't know if they needed to be unanswered as long as they were, but yeah.
But yes, when she's reading the journal, then we get we get Lestat's background, and that's when we we meet Marius and we meet Okasha. Um, because she's reading this journal, so we get this whole background of everybody. You know,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah,
this.
Marius at the the first thing we get in the flashback is we get a very chained up uh, Lestat, and he wakes up, and Marius just immediately attacks him. Uh, and then it seems like he's trying to teach him how to vamp and how to not, and he just keeps like doing things that are unvampirish. At least to him, I feel like Marius has a modicum uh, of how to carry oneself as a vampire. You know, uh,
Well,
with with some flair. You know,
well, basically, up until this time, because of interview and now this one, we've we've come to understand that Marius is the oldest living vampire until we get introduced to Akasha. But up until this point, he is the oldest. So yes, he is trying to teach Lestat the correct etiquette, I guess you might want to say, for being a vampire, because this is how he believes vampires should be and how they should act and what they should do and what they shouldn't do and everything else, because he has been around for how long,
how to secretly hide your corpses and all that jazz, because they are to be seen and not heard, basically.
But yes,
Uh,
it's I think that scene on the beach is quite interesting because Lestat becomes fascinated with the lady playing the violin, and here he goes and picks up the violin, and while he's playing, one of the other people, the other guy in the group realizes exactly what he is, and then okay.
Well,
So
yeah, when his eyes glow like that, that's kind of wicked.
yeah.
But we find out very soon that Lestat is quite the musician even then. So he has a very much love of music, which you actually see a little bit in the interview with the vampire, where he plays the piano. You know.
Yeah.
So,
He does a lot of that, and I think he was the one who insisted on the little girl learning to play. But
right.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, that seemed to have been his talent all the way through everything, is that he was musically inclined, on different instruments. We didn't realize about his singing part of it till this. Really. But um so yes, he and then when we're doing this background thing when she's reading the journal, then we become aware of Agasha, and it's a very small background on her, but
to be fair, Akashka actually called to him, and he was led down to where she was being kept, or at least being displayed, somewhere in that castle that Marius had there. And while Marius was away, the dogs come out to play. So to me, it was bound to happen regardless, because evidently Akashka was a little bit more stronger than Marius thought to be able to connect with him telekinetically. In fact, while he was going down to wherever she was, the doors broke open, and he didn't have anything to do with that. That was, Akashka. So to me, it's like he was tempted into the room, and when he played for her, that just kind of woke her up a
One
little
thing
bit.
I don't remember if they said it in the movie, and I don't remember because it's been so long since I read the book, is the how she got to that state of of being basically a stone figure, her and her mate. I don't remember how they got to that state.
I don't think that was spelled out fully in the movie.
The only
I
thing that
know
was
Marius
mentioned, the only thing that was
briefly.
mentioned was the fact that her husband was no longer with her, and she could no longer be without her husband.
Well, her and her husband had done a reign of terror to where Marius said that they almost bled the world dry, and
Right.
then something happened, and then that's how they ended up being turned basically into stone. But I don't remember what happened exactly.
Well, they got into too much weed and then they got stoned. That's just how
Yeah.
it is.
Didn't you know? But human and vampire physiology are different. It's quite possible that's what cannabis does to vampires.
True.
Uh,
Well, maybe. But yes, he is lured down there. He drinks her blood, and the Marius comes down and was not happy at
Angry.
all. Yeah. He's like, Lestat, what have you done?
And he realizes that because he's drank her blood, he's much stronger and he's much more rebellious. And he's rebellious to a point where Marius is like, I can't deal with this, so I'm going to teach you a lesson. So he left him how he was for 200 years.
Well, yeah, he wakes up. He wakes up at Marius, and everything is gone. Akash is gone. Marius is gone. Everything's gone. Everything. So
I thought it was rather cool seeing him take the statue and ending up biting into it. Like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too.
okay. So that's where his journal basically ends. Is there? So now we're back to reality.
Yep, and promises that cannot be kept. Because apparently she made a promise to David that she wouldn't go back to that club.
Correct.
But she goes anyways, and she mentions the name Marius. And that's when Lestat shows up. Of course, that's not before every vampire in the building is aware of her presence.
Correct.
And I think there is a conversation they have in which she mentions the fact that he's kept that violin of his after all. Didn't you? And he's like, clever librarian.
Clever girl. Yeah, no, that came a little bit later because we have the whole Jesse foolishly going in there and essentially taunting the vampires and bringing up Marius's name. And then, yeah, Lestat saves her, but, he ends up saving her from a trio of vampires that were not friendly. But
this character I could just as easily have seen been played by Kristen Stewart. Not at the time because she was too young, but it's just this character is so Bella that she annoys me as much as Bella.
See, Bella annoyed me entirely throughout that series, so I don't know why I don't like her as an actress, but I just don't.
If I had to put up with Jessie for more than one movie, I would probably have disliked her as much. Because it's the same character in almost every way. She's
it's
just
pretty close.
The only difference is, I'll admit, I think that it's written better. I mean, we're not going on about, ooh, it's so romantic to have him watching you sleep at night.
Yeah. They don't get into quite as much. They don't get into quite as much icky stuff as they do in the Twilight series. Not quite as much.
Icky stalker behavior. But that's just what it is.
Indeed.
So I guess now we're up to the point where the band is really taking off, and
Well, was it that scene, that part that David just mentioned? Because that was an interesting moment. Because he calls her a clever librarian and taunts her about it, and he mentions like he knows she's with the is it the
Talamascan?
Yeah, Talamascan. Which does set up one of the more amusing moments later where she's brought to him as an offering of the night with another young lady, and he calls her a Talamascan, and the other one's like, well, I'm Episcopalian,
right.
But I think, yeah, it was something like, he said something like, or she says something like, I'll tell you something that's not in the book. And then she's like, you still have your violin, don't you? And yeah, he was a little bit surprised, but definitely impressed that she figured that out. So I thought that was kind of fun, but I don't know. Was it? I don't remember. Was it at that moment that they did that, or was that later? I don't know. But anyway.
Okay. See, where are we about now?
Okay, we're right after the part where he's figured out that yes, he does still in fact have his violin. He had to go quickly and figure out whether his violin was still there.
Oh yeah, he opened up that chest and it was still there.
So after the well, we ultimately do know that he's planning with his band a concert, a one-time event only.
Death Valley, right?
In Death Valley, yes.
Yep, that poor place. Yeah.
So there is that. And Marius decides to show up, and he tries to convince him otherwise because he's awoken certain people, and he knows that they are about to have some company, you know. And they are both kind of glad to see each other. And he comments on the fact that he's still wearing red velvet.
Yeah, he says something like, I don't see how you got through the 50s like that. And I think he said, I slept through it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
I did like the scene that followed where they're sitting there at Times Square on that in front of that billboard. I thought that was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah, I thought so too. And he even said, "Okay, impressive," but it kind of reminds me of Madrid, where you can see all the tiny people running around. But so, do you know what happens after this, Tim?
Well, aren't we up to the concert?
I think we're ready for the concert, but yeah. So, of course, there is the mosh pit where all of a sudden they the music begins, and then Lestat appears, and then you see the vampires in the crowd, and at one point in time he's like, okay, this song is for those who have come to kill me, or something like that.
No, actually, did we get to where they introduced Aaliyah's character? Not as a statue.
Oh, yeah,
she was
that's
in the
right.
bar. Because
Oh,
that
yeah.
was by far one of the coolest scenes in the film, where she's going in there. They all are like...
That does happen before the Death Valley scene.
She's kind of fallen for him, and she's coming after him after killing her king. And then she basically just, with a wave of her hand, sets every vampire in that bar on fire. And that is a cool scene.
That is a cool scene. And the way she looks, she is very sexy looking. I think she played her part to a T. The way she looked, the way she carried herself, and I think that they gave her voice a definitely very ethereal sound to it. It kind of made you feel like she was ancient with that voice of hers, you know. But yeah, that was great. And then ultimately, when the shit started going down, and all these vampires came up, and the crowd was going wild because they thought it was all part of the show, all part of the theatrics or whatnot, and but the fighting there was real. So all the vampires that came up onto the stage, and I think I liked that part where Lestat just kind of just beheaded the one. Had just knocked the body over. It was like, eh.
So, with how the vampires moved on that scene, I could see that as a reflection. Like I say, I'm 100% certain the people who made the Twilight films watched this, because they have the vampires move identically in this, in the Twilight films. So so I was looking, it's like, wow, it's like in the Twilight movies. Except more blood, but
well,
what do you want? Twilight's.
And there's thankfully less sparkling here.
Oh yeah.
I'll be fair and honest as far as vampire show things go. I think Vampire Diaries was a better series that carried the flame of the novels than Twilight did. But anyways, moving back to the movie, Akashka, when she appeared and destroyed the middle of the stage, that was awesome. And when she made a few of the vampires go into flames, and then rose up with Lestat and took them where she took them. That whole scene was relatively cool. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. I keep forgetting. Are we to the bar scene yet, where she's?
That was before the Death Valley. So
Yeah, that I thought that was when she shows up at that bar, just like wow.
yeah, we'd already somewhat talked about it before. So,
Oh,
but
sorry.
that's okay. It was a good scene. So, heading after okay, so Lestat and Akashka have a love scene where I guess they're in this like pool with rose petals and shit, and then they wake up and he realizes that there's all these corpses, and she's like, "This is what it's going to be like, my love. This is after this, we'll go kill the rest, and we're going to ride off in the sunset kind of deal." And he's like, "Over a sea of corpses? I don't think so." But
well, it is notable that morning he recoils from the sun and then realizes it's not burning him. And then he goes out and meets her on the balcony, and it's like, she's like, yeah, your eyes will have to get used to it, but now you can, she is a daywalker apparently. And
well, yeah, her blood is so ancient that she can walk in the day as well as the night. But because he drank so much of her blood, he is now almost as like her equal at this moment. And I've noticed that anytime he drinks an older vampire's blood, he grows stronger. So, Tammy, take us forward.
Well, I think next we're seeing the scene where the other ancient vampires are plotting to remove her from existence.
Well, yeah, and also Jess learns the rest of her lineage from one of the ancients, which just so happens to be, I think, her grandmother.
She is one of her ancestors. I think we saw that whole big family tree. Jess is definitely not that close to her, but I think it's like, I don't know, but she's like a great grandparent or some such thing. But she tells something about how, I think it was her sister that started the bloodline, and she's been watching over them ever since, or something.
Yep, and because she was human, she had to spirit her away somewhere because other vampires found out about her, and so she could no longer live with her. So that's why she was kind of like, she ended up being more of a ward of the Telemaskin group. Person.
Right. Yeah. David's basically watched over her.
But in so doing, I think he kind of fell in love with her as she grew older. Because just as he's got an obsession with Marius, it's clear that he has a heavy crush on Jess. Even though he thinks he's way too old for her.
Is that clear?
It's clear.
Maybe.
He very much looks at her not like a father figure. He looks at her like he wants her. I've seen this movie a lot more, and I've kind of thought this over time. I definitely see and feel the vibes that he has towards her. So
I don't know. I always thought it was more of a protective vibe. But
That was kind of more what I got to. Like, I felt more like he didn't know what to think, you know? Like, I could definitely see what Dave's saying, but I could definitely see it also just being a really overprotective father who is struggling with feelings.
Well, in a hey stepdad sort of way.
Right.
But I felt like the romance here was handled better by Stephanie Myers, which is kind of. But then again, I do feel like Anne Rice. Of course, I never read the books. Anne Rice, I think that the romance is more in the sexy vampire thing. It's sort of like that sexy romance novel way. Where Stephanie Meyer is from that Mormon upbringing, so it's a lot more chaste feeling. But I did feel like there was a lot more certainty as to what they were going through there than what was going on here. But I also think that's probably because they were adapting 2 books and they were really having problems with the pacing and moving forward. I do feel there were parts of this where they felt like, well, these people have read the books. They know what's going on.
yeah, a little bit, but the thing is, did you just go and read the books right before the movie came out or what? I read the books so much longer before these movies came out,
Actually, I think that's the better way to do these a lot of times, because I've rarely ever seen a movie based off of a book where the movie was even with or kicked the book's ass.
Right.
It's almost always the case that the book is superior to the movie in every way. So I think the best way to do it, one of these things, is if you've read it like years ago, when the movie's coming out, don't touch the book. Don't look at the book. Just have a vague memory of what was going on. And that way, when they change things or they move things around, you have a little bit of a background, but you're not constantly thinking, why the heck did they do that? Why did they mess this character up? Why did they do that?
We actually were just having this discussion the other day at work, and yeah, it's always an interesting thing to see how it goes. And sometimes you'll have something where it's like I was describing earlier, where it feels like the book and fast forward, where ones that I've read the book and then I saw the movie where I really feel that are the 4th and 5th Harry Potter movies and The Light Between Oceans. All 3 of those are very faithful adaptations, but they cut so much out that it feels like you're watching the book and fast forward. But then you have movies like A Civil Action. I remember watching the movie right after reading the book and hating it because they so thoroughly just did not get the things done right. I didn't think I feel like they just dropped the ball completely. And then you have movies where it's debatable which one's better, but the movie made it its own thing. And Jurassic Park is a great example of that. Jurassic Park is a wonderful example of a movie that's almost nothing like the book.
I agree.
But they're both wonderful on their own merit. And then you have the very rare ones that are better. The book, The Princess Bride, is phenomenal. It's a classic. And the author rewrote the book in a completely different manner, and it became one of the greatest movies ever made. Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club is awful. I hate it. But David Fincher took it and made a brilliant film out of it. And in both of them, the tone was the main thing that changed, you know? So there are ways to do it where it can be really, really great, and there are ways to do it where it can be really, really awful. But yeah, I would say if you were to look at overall, the likelihood the movie will be better than the book is fairly low. But yeah, I agree with the idea that you probably shouldn't read the book right before watching the movie. It's probably not a good idea in most cases.
Yeah, I don't understand why most do that.
Yeah.
Especially with Stephen King books. His books are just so hard.
Hard
to make into a movie because he always has so much in his books. And if you're going to try and put everything that's in the Stephen King book into a movie, you're going to be sitting there.
The movie version of Misery was excellent. And
I agree with that, but I think that the good example would be the movie version of The Shining versus the TV version of The Shining. Mm-hmm. The TV version of The Shining was pretty much a direct adaptation of the book. The problem with Stephen King and adapting it is that Stephen King has a formula. He uses a good third of his books to develop characters before things really start going. And that works well in book format, but it can get boring in movie format. And that's very difficult, especially if you're doing a miniseries where the first episode is just like character building. But the payoff is that when the stuff starts going down, you really get attached to these characters. You really are fearful for these characters because you know them. I mean, I just finished The Stand, and I'm going through It, which are very different in their adaptations.
Right.
And, of course, they're doing another adaptation of The Stand. Actually, not The Stand, sorry. I'm thinking of a different one. But they're actually doing a new adaptation of a short story called The Monkey.
Yeah.
Which I've read the short story, and I will say that's an odd one. But then again, they did the chattering teeth, so I guess they could do the monkey.
Haven't you always wanted a monkey?
But I mean, that's the thing is a lot of the books, and then of course short stories are different too, like Lawnmower Man.
Yeah.
Which was nothing like remotely like the original material.
One that I thought was very faithful, but they changed the tone dramatically, was The Green Mile. The Green Mile, they didn't change a whole lot of the plot, but they changed the tone quite a bit. And that, I think the movie is better than the book, but they're both good.
That one and Shawshank is another one.
I still need to read the Shawshank Redemption. I've never read the story.
Where I felt like the movie, it didn't hit all the same notes, but it didn't have to. And it knew how to adapt the story, knowing that it's a movie and knowing it's going forward. But when you're doing something like, say, adapting 2 books, which I'm sorry, in and of itself, that is a bad move.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Shawshank is one of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that went the opposite direction, turning a short story into a feature film. But yeah, like you're saying, taking 2 full novels and condensing them into a movie can always be an awkward prospect at best. But yeah. But or sometimes you'll see the flip side. Like now, it's become a popular thing to split things into 2 movies. It's been happening more than it needed to. But an early example of that, one of the best book to screen adaptations ever, we'll hopefully cover later this year. The Godfather was split and turned into 2 films that were both phenomenal movies, but they really are 2 parts of a whole. But they're both based on the same book. They just took the book and chose to tell parts of it in one movie and parts of it in the other movie, and worked out pretty darn good. But anywho, yeah, a little bit of tangent there, I guess.
I wouldn't mind revisiting the Godfather trilogy, anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you should have a chance soon, hopefully.
All right, so where are we, Tammy? Okay, I think we're about you had started to talk about it, and they are plotting to take down Akashka.
Right.
But first of all, they have to somehow be in the same room as her. So I think they plan to meet up at a specific place. And Akashka shows up with Lestat in tow. And to all intents and purposes, Lestat seems to be under her control. At least to the other vampires.
Mm-hmm.
But I think secretly he is not. You know.
Right.
Yeah, we realize that in a few moments.
Or at least not as completely under her control as she thinks. Like he has her fooled, and that's, I guess, the most important thing.
And to prove his love for her, she commands him to kill the Talamascan girl, which we know as Jess. So everyone in the room is against this, but Jess actually says, "Hey, it's okay. It's what I want." Because originally there was a moment where Jess actually wanted him to turn her in the movie. And so he did the nice thing and actually took her to where a victim was, and he told her okay, you want to know what it's like to be me? Well, this is what it's like. That kind of thing, to show her that it's not all it's up to be. It's not all frills and bows and nicey things. You're actually killing someone when you're drinking or eating or making sure that you're fed as a vampire. So, but yeah, so she is willing to let him bite her.
Mm-hmm.
So he does.
She does have second thoughts when he does that, which is probably to her credit that her response wasn't, yeah, and?
But yes,
go ahead.
after he does that, then what does he say to her? He says something like, where's my reward or something? And she says, spoken like a true king. And
Yep. And then I think she proffers her arm or hand or whatever, and he comes and drinks from her.
Yeah. But he keeps going. He takes a lot more than she thought she was offering and won't let go. And that's when the other, what's that?
Yep.
And that's when
the
you
others
see
come
him.
in.
That's when you see him look up, and they realize that he's not under her control. You know,
Right.
he's looking at them like, "Come on."
Well, someone had mentioned earlier that I don't think it was him. Someone mentioned though that she's going to be at her weakest when she is allowing someone to feed or when
Oh, I think Marguerite or
Marius.
no, the lady isn't her name Marguerite?
Well, the actress is Marguerite. You Jesse? Or are you talking the aunt?
The aunt.
Yeah.
I
The
think she
aunt
said it.
is Maharat. I think it is Maharat. Yeah,
I
Maharat.
think she's the one that said that that's when she
Okay.
would be the weakest.
Okay.
And then she had also said
Yep.
too that the person who takes her last drop
Right.
they will also perish too.
Right.
And Mahara or whatever her name is, she also has told Jess that she should not have to worry about Lestat. He is too far gone. Before this gathering even happened. So, whatever Lestat did in drinking from Akashka, it helped to. Although some of the vampires actually, when they attempted to try, were killed.
Yeah.
But as she was drained, her powers also drained.
Right.
She wasn't able to fight them off anymore.
Right. There was
Correct.
one who started to deteriorate and then he got better.
I got
Yeah.
better.
He was the youngest looking one. Yes. Yeah. And then she tried to throw Lestat off too, and he recovered too.
Yep, and he just came back for more. But then he was about to drink her last drop, and that's when Mahara turned to him and said, "Lestat, no, stop." And then she took up the place, and then because I think it was a simple sacrifice on her end, she actually turned into that white stuff, whereas Akashka just completely turned into like ash.
Actually, I thought that was a very, very interesting how they did that. How they made her turn, completely like all black, and then, but stayed in that pose, that she was in, and then, she
Right.
just slowly, she went from all black to slowly, totally disintegrating and just going. I thought that was, you know, from a production, which we haven't gotten there yet, but I thought that was a really cool how they did that.
That was great CGI.
Oh yeah, I thought that was really good.
Some
Yeah, I
CGI
think that-
actually looks pretty good.
Actually, they incorporated a lot of that with the with practical effects. So I think by combining the practical effects and the CGI together, it helped a lot.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So
And
after
I
this is all done, then Lestat goes to Jess and um
turns
basically
her.
turns her, yeah.
And then of course David walks into his office, and lo and behold, Lestat is sitting in one of his chairs.
Well, it's more he's in his office and they do that thing where you hear something and you know something's up and he gets up to investigate and he turns around and it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, by the way, I heard you might want to have this back, and it's his actual journal.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's willing to part with it or give it back to him is like a token towards friendship, in a sense.
Friendship, maybe. Definitely, he knows that it'll be safe there,
Yep.
or as safe as it can be.
Of course, him and Jess talk,
Mm-hmm.
and she
But the
attempts to
whole time
try to.
David's somewhat apprehensive as soon as if Jess or Lestat get too close, he's kind of jumpy because
Yeah, he is.
Yep.
they're like, well, if you ever change your mind,
Yeah,
as he
he
said,
claims he's too old.
too old to live forever. Yes.
But in
Yeah.
a sense, he kind of reminds me of like the Giles like character from like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
So
I never watched that, so I don't know.
well,
But-
we should definitely one of these days. Then
But then as they bid him for farewell, Marius goes in there. And well,
he's like, "Hello, David."
yep.
Yeah.
I get a kick out of that because my name's David. So
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, every time he's like, oh, and he does the same thing when he's in the crowd at the music fest too. Hello, David. It fucks with him
Yeah.
throughout the movie. So I think it's kind of cool. And I think that the art pieces that David has picked up over time, I think those were purposely meant for David to find, regardless. So
I think Marius has always had like a respect for David.
well, I also think the fact that he came into the room at the end there, that maybe Marius actually turned David at the end there.
Well, it leaves you. Yeah, it leaves you. I think in the book he does.
Yeah, I think so too. I seem to remember that happening.
Okay.
But
So,
yep. Then we just see them walking off into the night, and that's
and of
about
course
it.
you hear the Forsaken music again. The first song after the that start with the credits. But at the end of everything, I guess, what did you all think about the production overall? Brandon?
Well, I mean, like I say, I think that there's a lot of good to this. I mean, I like the mix of. I like that they actually do mix a lot of practical and CGI effects, which do help it a lot. It's an interesting way of doing it. Especially since early 2000s, unless you had a boatloads of money, like say they did for Jurassic Park, the early CGI is always hit or miss. Costume design was amazing, though. Aaliyah in her outfit, That was a spectacular look. I did really think that it held together as far as the placements. The concert in Death Valley also looked really cool. There was a lot of neat scenes there. So I thought production design was pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say it was pretty solid overall. One interesting thing to mention that I don't think we mentioned yet, but I guess we talked a little bit about some of the casting. But I don't know that we mentioned this, that apparently Jonathan Davis, the songwriter, does have a cameo in the movie. He's the scalper that offers Jesse the tickets for an absurd amount of money. And I just think any professional musician would probably have fun playing a scalper, because I'm sure they hate scalpers, and it would probably have been kind of fun to jump into that, I guess. But he doesn't play him quite as badly as he could have, but I was kind of amused when I found that out. But yeah, overall the production was pretty solid, and they did good with the. Brandon mentioned the costumes, but just generally the set design and everything. They could have done better, but they could have done worse. And
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, like especially the whole concert scene was really intense. I thought that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And like you slightly mentioned the attire. I mean, the costumes and stuff, I thought were really good. Especially Akasha's costume, or well, she had a few different ones, but I mean, how they portrayed her and everything, I thought was really good.
I agree. I think that whatever Lestat was wearing, I would have wanted to wear at that point in time. That was black leather, pure Gothic wear at that point in time. I wanted, at one point in time, I didn't want to be this preppy dude. I wanted to be a little bit more Gothic myself. But being that I was constrained within a very spiritual home, I was somewhat conformed to not doing that kind of thing. So, but this movie speaks my language, at least in that aspect of things. I thought the production was actually pretty good. I don't think they could have stepped it up any better than that, than what they did with the material that they were working with. Since they obviously, yes, were mixing the two novels together. And unfortunately, we didn't have someone who I hope that in the future someone might be able to pay homage to Anne Rice and give the novels, even though I know we have like a TV series out there right now of the interview, whatnot. I still think that someone should go out and create a trilogy and give them each their own thing,
I think what would be interesting is if they maybe combined the Lestat and the Marius novels.
That would be interesting.
I think that we've already got the groundwork in a lot of ways done. The fact that you've got kind of was it a mini series that they made?
Yeah.
I think a mini series is if you're looking,
it's not a mini series. It's actually on its second season, so it's more of a TV series.
See, I think a mini series is the best way to adapt a novel. I mean, Stephen King, I think a lot of his best movies that aren't adaptations of short stories are ones that were done as miniseries. I mean, some of my favorites, like The Stand, It, Rose Red, all of them were episodic because that way they could go into a depth that was needed to cover the depth of the novels. I mean, I'm actually in the minority because I actually like the TV version of The Stand, not The Stand, sorry, of The Shining better than the movie, the Kubrick movie. But and I know I'm in the minority.
No, you're not.
But
As we discussed
I-
on the discussion for The Shining,
Yep.
I mean, if you look at it as its own independent movie, not based on anything, it's a good, solid film. But as an adaptation, it sucks.
But
Well, to me, the only true Pennywise is Tim Curry. I'm sorry.
well, they both have their points. I am curious about the Welcome to Derry series when that comes out next month.
where's
again,
that coming out on?
I think it's on Max, but I could be wrong. But
Not
let me
going to
double
be paying
check.
for it just for that.
Welcome to Derry. That is going to be Max. But I do think that they all have their points, and like I say, with this, I think they could take the trilogy here and take the books and adapt them into a season each. This is how I always thought Harry Potter should have been done.
Yeah.
Let's take a TV series and do them a season.
Apparently, that's what they are trying to do. Which, okay, that could work. I still say to differentiate them from the movies, the series should be animated, but they're not doing that.
Well, I mean, they'll put in things to differentiate it. Like I think they're going to set it during the current day and age, and they're going to incorporate a lot of more modern values into it. So it'll definitely differentiate itself.
One thing that is right out of the gate, apparently they've cast John Lithgow as Dumbledore. That's definitely going to be different.
Yeah, that's going to be weird, but yeah. But I think he could do it.
So. Oh, he could. But
he's an amazing actor.
Yeah. But at any rate, so we covered production, I guess, and I know we've talked about music, but I'll just say again, I think it was a pretty solid soundtrack. It definitely fit the movie. It's kind of a shame that rights issues prevented them from doing a proper soundtrack release, apparently, but I think it fit the film pretty well.
I think the
I
music.
think so.
They think the music did fit the film and everything. Like what David was saying. The music and stuff was kind of more from his era. I mean, it definitely is. I mean, I do know the bands that were involved, and I do like a song or two from all the different bands and everything that were involved in it, but they're not my favorite bands.
Apparently the music, like the songs, were by Jonathan Davis of Korn. The music was by Jonathan Davis and Richard Gibbs, who also played with Korn. But apparently he played with a number of people, including Oingo Boingo, the State, Chaka Khan. He's recorded with Tom Waits, with Melissa Etheridge. That's an eclectic group there.
Well, I definitely like Tom Waits and Oingo Boingo. So.
Now imagine Jonathan Davis and Danny Elfman teaming up for something. That would just be interesting.
Yeah, it would definitely be interesting, but I think Danny Elfman is out of the band industry.
Well, he's Oingo Boingo. That's his group.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Danny Elfman is one of those people who is amazingly talented, but also has a habit of recycling his own work constantly. Yeah. And that's
a lot of composers do that, honestly.
He does it to a major degree.
Yeah, he does. But In
Most
fairness,
of his movie soundtracks are the same thing.
no, I would say he has 4 or 5 different modes. And same thing like John Williams does, honestly.
Mhm.
Like John Williams has 4 or 5 just iconic scores and a handful of other good bass scores. And he has several iconic scores that clearly cannibalized his earlier work. Like the Harry Potter theme clearly cannibalizes Home Alone. There's no two ways about
Oh
it.
yeah.
And yeah, Danny Elfman definitely does the same. Now, I'll be honest, as someone who's not familiar with Korn, the little bit I've heard of them, I'd probably say a lot of it sounds the same.
I love their episode of South Park.
What's up?
I love the episode of South Park with them.
Oh, they had an episode of South Park on that topic.
Yes, the Korn characters, basically they made it like a Scooby-Doo episode, but with the Korn band being the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine.
Okay, that's something. Very interesting. But anyway, got some. Are we?
I think we are to the point where we can now talk about favorite scenes and our favorite characters.
Okay.
And I think, Tammy, would you agree with this? That maybe we could ask the group what their favorite vampire movie is?
Sure.
Didn't we do that for an interview?
I
don't know. Maybe. Well, maybe not.
We might have. But I can't think of anything different right offhand, so I'll go with it if she was. So I guess let's start with you, Jake. Favorite scene and her favorite character and favorite vampire film.
Well, I'm not entirely certain what would be my favorites in this one. I would almost say Marius would be my favorite character, but I don't know that I have a clear winner in this one. I didn't like Akasha as a character, but I did like getting a chance to see Aaliyah act, and so that was I was interested very much. I was interested in seeing a version of Lestat that I didn't actively dislike. And I'll agree with Brandon that Jessie was giving off such strong Bella vibes, it was irritating. But she definitely was cute, and I liked watching her go through what she was doing. I just was disappointed that they were giving her so little to do. I picked a picture of her, but I guess I'll go with Marius as a favorite, but yeah. As far as favorite scenes, maybe the 2 scenes in the bar, maybe, because they were both pretty interesting. Or maybe that last scene with David, first with Lestat and Jessie, and then Marius. I thought that was kind of a neat scene. I don't have a clear favorite, but I guess we'll say that. As far as favorite vampire films, I'm pretty sure that we did do this one recently, and I'm pretty sure that my answer was Let the Right One In. And I think I'm going to go with that because that is a freaking awesome movie. But since this film, it was an Australian co-production and largely filmed in Australia, I'm going to go with, I want to give a shout out to a film that was from that general area, that neck of the woods, if you will. But although it was technically a Kiwi film, but I freaking love What We Do in the Shadows. And that's one I really want to see the show. I haven't seen the show, but the movie is great. And so I'll just give that one a shout out because it was not an Australian production, but it was from that general area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go over to you, Brandon. What was a favorite scene or scenes, favorite character, and favorite vampire movie?
Well, Akasha definitely was my favorite character. The bar scene was my favorite. Let's see, was my favorite scene. Favorite vampire movie. Oh, I could say vampires suck again, but that would probably be wrong.
That one did suck.
But was amusing at the same time.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
Actually, I would say now that I've actually had more time to think about it, I really like. There's actually two that I keep thinking of vampire movies I really enjoyed. My Best Friend is a Vampire was actually a fun film that I really liked in the 80s or 90s. I can't remember. And then The Lost Boys is also a one that has grown on me over time. I've really liked that one. So I'd go with either one of those.
Okay. Is that it then?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that hits all of it.
Okay. Heading over to you, Tammy. Favorite scene and our favorite character and favorite vampire movie of all time for you. And I know you're a fan of all of it.
Lestat is my favorite character. Scenes, I do like the. I agree with Jake. I like the different bar scenes. Especially the one where with Akasha in the bar scene. I thought that was just really cool. And I do like when they overtake her and she's like disintegrating. I think the whole effect of that is just like really cool. You know how they did that. Favorite a movie is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay.
I mean, I do love a lot of the older ones, and I've got, you know, numerous versions of, you know, the older Dracula, or, and then it'll say Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it's this from this year and this actor, I. But the actual Bram Stoker's Dracula one that came out, that one is my favorite. But yet, I've got a whole like shelf thing full of Dracula movies. So
Yeah.
Okay. And is that pretty much it for then for you?
yep.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm trying to think because I have many different scenes in this movie that I actually like. I like the backstory of Lestat. I do like the moment where he's playing his violin before Akasha, and then the hand moves up like it's the mechanical, and he bites her or whatnot. But I also think I like the moment when Akasha turns into that blackness and just disintegrates away. That whole thing there, where they sucked her dry until her death. I think that was awesome. I think the bar scene was awesome. That was great special effects there. So, favorite character, I would have to say, is Lestat. This is my this is technically my favorite of the vampire movies, but I'm gonna second a couple of them that are out there because they're almost as equal. Underworld being one of them, the original Dracula. There's this one that's called The Fearless Vampire Killers.
Hmm.
That was funny.
That one is funny. It's also known as "Pardon Me, but your teeth are in my neck."
Okay, I've heard that.
So, it's very like early humor. I think it was directed by Roman Polanski, if I remember correctly.
Oh my!
But it's a funny little film. And of course Nosferatu, the original 1922 version.
It's actually kind of funny. There was a story that Kevin told me about the film. Like she had a friend who would always think that hand gesture Leah did at others when she set them on fire after that. Like, yeah, dismiss you like you're on fire, you're dead.
But yeah, I think the Death Valley scene was pretty awesome too. So all around, I think that pretty much covers it. So unless anyone else has anything else to add, I think we're pretty much done with our discussion. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along with us on this vampiric journey. Hopefully you get a chance to, and hopefully you've at least seen the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it and then come back and listen to our play-by-play discussion on the movie, and hopefully we did it some justice. So let us know down in the comments what you thought of either, and I guess we'll go around the room and tell a little bit about who we are and what we do. So Tammy, if you wanted to give an introduction to yourself.
I go on this channel and another one with David and discuss movies with everybody and check out all different movies, and I have my own collection, and it's a lot of fun to listen to everybody else's thoughts and ideas and everything, and that's about it at this time of the year. So
Alrighty, heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, the YouTube channel that talk about physical media and related items. And I'm in the process, I hope, of restarting my own nature-themed channel. I took some video footage today, went out in the freaking cold weather to look for salamanders, somewhat successfully. So that may be coming out soon, but I'm not going to commit to it until it happens. But in the meantime, I am pushing hard to get my first novel written, and I've started sharing chapters with people to look at and give me some notes. So that'll be good. Meanwhile, I just keep really busy at work, at play, at trying to keep myself sane in this world of insanity. And, I always try to watch, movie a week to join these folks for our discussions. Also getting ready for the upcoming anime discussion on the Shaft Classic Pony Pony Dash, which is next week, I think. The week after. Brandon, do you remember?
What was that? That will be on the week of the 26th will be the day.
Next Wednesday, I believe.
Yep.
So, working my way through that batshit insane series that is fun nonetheless. And hopefully we'll have a couple of folks here joining us. That's really about it at the moment. I guess, do you want me to go ahead and lay up next week's movie, or do you want to come back to me on that?
I'll come back to you on that.
Okay.
Let's go over to you, Brandon, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
SeptumSin versus Galore. We do the physical media thing. I'm trying my best to do more this year. Last couple of years have been kind of like off and on, while trying to also help Dave with his stuff. But we're kind of waiting on a costume to arrive before we can move forward. But that should be arriving before the next time we do some filming. But otherwise, I've got some reviews coming out. The last review I did was Children of Camp Blood, because I'm trying to do mostly micro-budget films, because that's something that a lot of it's films that I want people to know about, but I have also kind of tried to make a dedication to do all the Camp Blood movies, so I'm finally trying to do that. But this week, there will be a full review of Phil Herman's The Unearthed. And I went in some good detail with that, and that should be something looking forward to. And I'm also working on editing some pickup videos and maybe even some music stuff, which you can buy at the link below if you want. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Oh, and one other thing, because I didn't didn't play a video for Tammy earlier, and this is my last chance.
I just called because I have to say, happy birthday on your birthday day! Happy birthday on your birthday day! And there's a special delivery coming right your way. Your favorite.
See, now I have like one of this, and then I have the Three Stooges, so we do a little bit of variety on those things.
Thank you.
So, alrighty. Well, my name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, and I also do a similar variety show on a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we go on almost every Sunday and try to go on about various different films. And I think I chose, since it was my turn, this and since Tammy went to the Angels with City of Angels, I decided to bring it to God with Oh God this Sunday. So might as well, since it's a relatively comical film. So
is that the George Burns film?
Yep, that's the George Burns.
George Burns and John Denver. What a pair.
Yep. So
are you on a Singers Who Died in Plane Crashes kick?
What? No. I wasn't even thinking about it when I chose it. I figured since Tammy did one for the Angels, I figured I'd kick one in for God. So
okay.
But in any case, definitely check out our discussion on that channel, and I think we'll have a blast. So, but in any case, I do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time, so check those out as well. Also, I do know that Brandon and I have definitely some things that are for sale on our Kunaki or website. So go ahead down below, check out the shop. I know he's still got his film up on SRS Cinema, as well as the Kunaki website. But I also just put out some uh, music. So I believe I've got 12 albums out there now, if I am not mistaken. So definitely check out some music from Drown Out Dark. It's my band. So and also check out Brandon's band, the AI Assholes.
All AI, no filler.
He's got some funny shit, and they also put together the Inside Moves Galore theme song. So definitely check that out. But in any case, I believe our good friend Jake here has the title of the movie for next week. So why don't you throw that at us? What is it?
All right. Well, first of all, I have one observation I meant to make, and I totally forgot about it until my morbid joke a moment ago. And then a personal update that I didn't even think about until just now. So apologies on that. But one, when you think about it, how Interview with the Vampire was going to star River Phoenix, and he died right before production began. And this one, Aaliyah died during post-production. It may have been good that they didn't try to make 3 films, with that track record. I don't know, just a morbid observation there. But anyway.
No, so maybe you think the Anne Rice movies are cursed?
Well, this series specifically. And also, I got an email today. There's a short film called Naker that I backed on Kickstarter that apparently they're getting ready to run out to festivals. And I got an email today letting me know I had a link to it. So that's kind of fun. Every now and then I'll throw something behind a Kickstarter project. And I haven't done it in a minute, but it's always fun to find out that, the stuff you backed is coming through. So, yeah, I thought I would throw that out there. And if you get to go to any festivals, check it out. It'll be a good, I don't know yet, but I assume it'll be a good movie. But, but yes, next week, we're going to be doing a movie that sounds like it could be a vampire movie, but it's not. It's the cinematic debut film by directors Joel and Ethan Coen, Blood Simple, movie from 1984, starring John Getz, Frances McDormand, Danejurous, and M. Emmett Walsh. And it is a dark, seedy thriller that's very, very, very different from some of their films that came later, but also very much an indication of what was to come. And like I said, I didn't even think about it that I chose their film that sounds like it could be a vampire film, but probably a good way to round out the month.
Definitely. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to revisiting Blood Simple. I have watched it myself before, but I'm sure I'll be able to show it to Tammy. I'm not sure whether she's seen it or not, but we will definitely look forward to the discussion and rounding out the month here with it. So ladies and gentlemen, follow us into next week. And on that note, Brandon, hit the end credits.
Night, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Inside movies galore, just makes you just want more. We've had all in the world of media to explore. Horror, anime, or Curious George. Our love of new things was our reward. It is the best night of our week.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.